You saw some situations where like Caitlin's stuck guarding Kelsey and Kelsey's, knocking her off the ball, and Caitlin gets called for a foul and she starts yelling at the refs like, she's grabbing me, and all of the coaches from WNBA teams who are sitting there watching are just cracking up. Kelsey had one situation where she sort of finished through traffic. She'd been struggling a little bit, got through to the hoop, just like yells right in like Becky Hammond and Nikki Fargas's face, and they're just like cracking up.
Observe Kelsey Plum's body language at that precise moment. She is conveying a message rather than merely playing defense. Additionally, Caitlin Clark is pointing at Kelsey's arm across her chest and firing back at the referees. At the USA basketball training camp in North Carolina, this is what took place behind closed doors. The reporter who saw it firsthand claims that this fight reveals all about Caitlin's stance on the 20. For 3 days, Sabrina from The Athletic spent time in that gym. She witnessed every exercise, every scrimmage, every encounter, and what she's reporting runs counter to nearly everything we've been told about Caitlin's prospects of making this squad.
Clark being back on the court, you also got a quote out of Sue Bird about her being impressed with Caitlin just being engaged while she was out and getting back to being able to play. A little bit about what Caitlin looked like on the court, how much fun she was having, how important it was, and then someone else, Angel Reese on the other side, talking about Chicago. That was the article I was not expecting.
Yeah, so we'll start with Caitlin. Obviously, she suffered just a bevy of injuries in her sophomore season, played her last game on July 15th, even before All-Star Weekend. This was her first real 5-on-5 action since...
That particular detail. She resembled Caitlin. It's not a compliment. Caitlin had not participated in a 5-on-5 since July 15th, 2025.5 months away from the court. Her season ended early due to a plantar fasciitis ailment, which she is still struggling with. She hasn't had enough time to regain her conditioning. Despite this, Sabrina is sitting there, watching her drop, step-back threes, and thread pass past defensive pressure at the FIA level as if she had never left. Here's what makes this important, though. They weren't using WNBA defensive tactics. Sabrina made it clear that the scout team was told to play at FIA physicality standards. That game is entirely different. Even the WNBA does not permit as much contact, hand-checking, or body-to-body defense as FIBA. And even though Caitlin was still recovering from her injuries, she was dominating that type of play.
It was a combination of like USA players going against USA players, and then also USA players going against the scout team, which was just like players from small colleges all across North Carolina sort of helping out with that scout team practice. And she looked like Caitlin, right? Like the step back three was there, the passes were there. When she was not playing with Aaliyah Boston, some of the bigs didn't know what to do with their passes. Like there was one time where she passed it to Hamby, and Hamby like brought the ball down. It's like, you can't do that. Like this is not, you have to keep it up, right?
Straight up, right.
Just like not expecting,
Let's examine what Sabrina recently disclosed regarding the Kelsey Plum matchup. Caitlin is being forcefully knocked off the ball by Kelsey. When Caitlin is called for a foul, she yells at the referees about Kelsey grabbing her right away. All of the WNBA coaches, including Becky Hammond and Nikki Cullen, are laughing while seated courtside. Why? Because they have witnessed this identical situation occur numerous times throughout the season. This is what Caitlin Clark went through. She tries to fight through being mauled on defense, is called for the foul when she pushes back, and then has to make her case to officials who might or might not agree with her. It's important that Sabrina pointed out that Ham's arm was across Caitlin's chest. In FIBA rules, that is limiting freedom of movement. The defender committed a foul, but it wasn't called. On the other end, Kelsey Plum is celebrating by yelling directly in Becky Hammond's face as she finishes through traffic after having trouble during the scrimmages. These two fierce rivals are vying for the same roster place. With the ball in their hands, they both flourish as guards. They have both demonstrated their ability to perform well under extreme pressure and their refusal to back down from anyone.
Speak up, man. I need to hear that, S. Right, I need to hear it. And Caitlin Clark having the whole crowd yelling at her. She's like, yeah, come on, yeah. And then ended up shutting them up. I mean, that video was crazy. I think it was a high school or maybe college. I think it was a college video. Whole crowd just shut up. The guys over there. Hey, man, two absolute dogs, man. And we know Caitlin Clark is going to give it to those refs. if they are.
The most significant quotation from the entire interview is this one. Sabrina observed Caitlin play against scout team members who were particularly told to play at FIA physicality levels rather than WNBA aggressiveness. FIBA physicality. That's even more physically demanding than Caitlin's rookie and sophomore seasons, when she had to endure nightly hip checks, body checks, and clotheslining. According to Sabrina's opinion, she appeared well. She didn't appear rusty or like she was still recovering. Even though she was still recovering from a plantar fasciitis injury that kept her out for 5 months, she showed good under defensive pressure at the international level. Consider the implications for her 3rd season. What happens when Caitlin has a full training camp with a fever if she can dominate FIA-level defense at perhaps 75% conditioning? What happens if she spends the entire season in good health? Because, let's face it, injuries ruined her sophomore season. The general wear and tear from playing 40 games in 4 months with Olympic training camp in between, as well as plantar fasciitis. She was never given the opportunity to build on that spectacular debut season. However, Sabrina also brought up a point that is frequently disregarded. Caitlin was expressing to each squad member how pleasant it was to speak with them once more and how glad she was to be a part of the basketball process. That illustrates how alone she felt while recovering from her accident. She missed more than simply games. She missed the rivalry, the camaraderie, and the daily grind of being around top players who challenge you to improve.
I remember there was a clip showing De'Erica Hamby getting that double team hard hedge going on Caitlin, and they were like, oh, Caitlin is still pushing off. Look, Hamby's arm was across Caitlin's chest. All right, I did want to bring this into this video. Hamby reaching across the chest is a foul on Hamby. All right, she was restricting her freedom of movement. You can't do that, fam. You gotta slide those puppies. Now, I'm not too surprised that players could not handle Caitlin Clark passes. We saw that happen in the first year, right? So when you have players who don't necessarily play with her, never play with her, they're gonna have to have a learning curve. Right? They're going to have a learning curve. Now, I do feel like Chelsea Gray had some really stylish passes in some of those clips. So, I don't know why it's so hard to keep up with Caitlin Clark. Maybe because she threads that needle and she puts it right.
Sabrina had the opportunity to witness directly what Carol Lawson is focusing on with her USA basketball program. This was more than just a publicity event or showcase camp. They conducted competitive scrimmages with genuine defensive ferocity. To mimic international competition, scout teams from tiny institutions in North Carolina were brought in. Additionally, they made it possible for players like Caitlin, who haven't played since the middle of July, to have a real 5-on-5 run against elite opponents. This structure is important because it shows the values of American basketball. They are considering more than just who had the best WNBA season. They are assessing who can adapt to FIA regulations, who can manage international physicality, and who can succeed in a system that is entirely different from the one they operate with their professional teams. Despite being away from competitive basketball for months, Caitlin's success in that setting demonstrates her adaptability and basketball acumen. Let's also talk about the topic of politics, which is the elephant in the room. In 2024, A.A. Wilson stated that roster decisions were influenced by politics. She hinted that some players were left off the Olympic squad due to outside circumstances rather than their on-court performance. Whether you agree with it or not, Caitlin was left out of the Paris Olympics despite being the most popular player in women's basketball and setting records in her first campaign.
And in their very near future, and we wrote about that on the site, just like how people have been perceiving the negotiations and what still affects them and what they're thinking about with regards to the new collective bargaining agreement. But for now, just good time at camp, 3 days in North Carolina, a little snow on one of the days, just a little taste of the winter in the South. But
right.
Yeah, it was interesting just to see what Carol Lawson is prioritizing in terms of how she wants to make her imprint on this program.
With that De'Erica Hamby example, Sabrina is actually teaching us this. You have to entirely alter your perspective on receiving passes when you play with Caitlin Clark. The ball is typically given to you by point guards, and you must decide how to use it. Caitlin delivers the ball precisely where you need it to score right away. That calls for a particular level of passing precision and court vision, but your teammates must agree. Aaliyah during Caitlin's freshman season, Boston immediately found it out by the end of that first year, Boston understood that she had to catch the ball high and go straight up when Caitlin tossed it to her in the paint. Just catch and finish. Don't hesitate or congregate. In Caitlin's third season, the Fever must restore the synergy that made them so dangerous together. That chemistry wasn't yet present among the bigs at USA basketball camp. It wasn't an error on Hamby's behalf to bring the ball down. Simply put, it's muscle memory from playing with many point guards who make passes in different ways. However, it demonstrates why Caitlin needs the appropriate people in her life. Athletic bigs that can catch and finish in traffic are what she needs. Her passes arrive faster than most defenders can recover, so she requires shooters who can move quickly. Instead of expecting her to fit into a conventional point guard role, she requires a system that maximizes her playmaking.
She was just like so happy to be there and like was individually like telling media members how nice it was just to like talk to them again and like that she was just part of the basketball process, even if that includes all of these other responsibilities.
So there you have it, fam. Caitlin Clark been an absolute beast at the training camp. Shout out to her, man. Now, I already kind of knew Kelsey Plum and Caitlin Clark was going to be going after it. All right, those are two players battling for that one position, right? And these are two players that absolutely asked crowds to give it to him. All right, if we remember Kelsey Plum turning around to Spike Lee saying, hey, you need...
Let's summarize what Sabrina's behind-the-scenes reporting taught us. Caitlin Clark attended the USA basketball camp. She hasn't played competitive basketball for 5 months, yet her plantar fasciitis is still a problem. She hasn't had enough time to return to game-level conditioning. Despite FIA-level defensive pressure, she dominated scrimmages, made step-back threes as if she had never left, and threaded passes that were too accurate for seasoned players to handle. That performance is significant because it refutes the myth that Caitlin is incapable of competing on a global scale. Do you recall the justifications given for her exclusion from the Paris Olympics roster? She is too young. She has to gain more expertise. She finds the international game to be too physically demanding. Sabrina recently witnessed her do exceptionally well against physicality that was even more extreme than what she encountered throughout her WNBA seasons. And she did it while still recovering from her injury. The matchup with Kelsey Plum is very illuminating. One of the world's most competitive guards is Kelsey. She won a gold medal in the FIA World Cup. She has demonstrated her ability to compete on a global scale, and she was attacking Caitlin with all the physicality the referees permitted. Caitlin refused to give up. She continued to attack, fought through the contact, and screamed out the referees when they failed to call fouls. If USA basketball is to succeed, they must adopt that mindset. This is the awkward question that no one likes to ask though. What was the true reason Caitlin was kept off the Paris roster if she was playing so well at camp, dominating FIA-level defense, and demonstrating her ability to handle international physicality? Because it was obviously not about her capacity to compete at that level. When a player breaks viewership records, sells out arenas, draws unprecedented attention to women's basketball, performs at an elite level against international competition, and yet is left off the Olympic team, A.A. Wilson's remarks about politics being involved suddenly seem much more credible.